أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Our discussion was in sixth verse of Surah Yaseen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in this verse, لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. And we had not come to any conclusion when it came to this verse. And we said there are different scenarios that are possible when it comes to this verse. And we said that one of the translation that has been translated by the Mufassirin, by our scholars, is that so that you may warn people whose forefathers were not warned, hence they are heedless. So by ma over here, ma a negative, ma a nafia has been taken by some of the scholars, but some of the scholars say no, there is another translation that is more suitable for this verse, is that, and that is that so that you may warn with what your forefathers have been warned. And then there comes a third translation, which some scholars have translated, and they say that so that you may be warned with you may warn such people whose forefathers were warned like you. So these are the three translations that are there. There are more than that too, but three major translations of this verse. The problem with the first translation was the question that arises with the first translation, or the objection that comes with the first translation, was that if the verse says that there says to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse is addressing who? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's saying, "Innaka laminal mursalin." Indeed, you are the messenger. Indeed, you are from the messengers. And then, after saying that to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah says, "Ala siratin mustaqim." Who are you? Who are you, Prophet? What kind of prophet are you? Ala siratin mustaqim, a prophet who is on a straight path. After saying this, he comes and says, لِتُنْذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنْذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ. What is the job of the prophet? What is the service that prophet is going to provide? What is why have prophet been sent here by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and job also assigned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not by us, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world, is what? لِتُنْذِرَ, so that you may warn people whose forefathers were not warned. So the problem here is, our belief is, as Shia belief is, and we all believe, لا تخلو الأرض من حجة الله. This earth, this world has never been without the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the shape of prophet or in the shape of an imam have always been there in this arz, in this dunya. So how is it possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here first that your forefathers were not warned, but then he says that then also our belief is لا تخلو الأرض من حجة الله. We said, we tried to resolve this objection, and we said that by saying over here that the forefathers were not warned, it means that does not mean that there were no warners sent to the forefathers. First of all, we ask this question, what do we mean by aba'ahum? Do we mean the forefathers in Quraysh, the forefathers of Makkah, the forefathers of Arabs? Because if we mean the forefathers from far away, then Hazrat Ismail was sent, Hazrat Shu'aib was sent, a lot of other prophets, Hazrat Isa was sent, a lot of other prophets were there. But yes, there was a gap of between Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Prophet Isa of 500 years. In these 500 years, there was no prophet sent between Prophet Isa and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is true. But, and we'll come to this and try to resolve this too in a bit. But right now, when by saying aba'uhum, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mean? Either he could mean the forefathers of Quraysh, or he could mean the forefathers in Makkah in general, or Arab. It's either of three, yeah? So if it's Arab and Makkah, forefathers of Arab, and then that's not true, because there were prophets sent and there were others, warners, other Salihin, successors, Awsiya of prophets that were sent to warn them. So warners were sent for them. Well, now question is that if we mean by Aba'uhum the forefathers in Quraysh or in Makkah, then this verse is true, that there were no forefathers sent. But we said that we did not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over here, when he said that they were not warned, as in that forefathers, for the forefathers, warners were sent, but they are the ones who did not receive the warning of the warners. Because Allah did not say that there was no Nadhir sent here, no warner sent here. That means warner were sent, but they did not receive it. But now comes the question, and that is, so for the question, there comes Surah Fatir. We said, verse number 24, Inna arsalnaka bilhaqqi bashiran wa nadhira wa im min ummah illa khala minha nadhir. No nation who lived before was left without a warner. For every nation there was a warner said. This verse clearly talks about it. Surah Fatir, verse number 24. So how to resolve it? If the warner was sent for each and every nation, for all kind of people, for every people, a warner was sent. Surah Fatir, verse number 24 talks about it. And Surah Yaseen, verse 6 says, on the other hand, that for their forefathers, no, they were not warned. So if by not warned, we mean that the warners were sent, but they are the ones who did not receive the warning. They did not welcome it. They did not get warned because of their sins, because of their commitments to other issues. So that is also possible. Or their warnings of the warners were neglected. So this is one of the answers given for this objection. The other is, by warner, we sometimes mean an external warner, and sometimes we also mean internal warner. What do I mean by it? Because we have two kinds of guide. We have one guide that is external guide, and we have one guide that is internal guide. The external guides are like prophets, messengers, and imams. And the internal guide is our mind, which is there 24/7 with us to guide us, to warn us. And this is not me saying. There's a hadith in Al-Kafi, Ya Hasham, Inna lillahi ala nas hujjatain. Hujja zahira wa hujja batina. O Hisham, indeed, inna lillahi ala nas, on people from Allah, there are two authorities. One authority is external authority, and one authority is internal authority. فأما الظاهرة, as for the external authority, فالرسل والأنبياء والأئمة, messengers, prophets, and imams are the external authority on the people. And we remember a few days back we talked about the difference between prophets, messengers, and ulul azm messengers. If any of you who does not know the difference, he should refer back to first or second, I guess, lecture. وَأَمَّا الْبَاطِنَةِ, as for the internal guide, internal hujjah, internal authority, فَالْعُقُولِ. So that means that we have two kinds of hujjah. We have two kinds of authority. External authority, we have internal authority too. Even though there have no been external authority, external guide, external warner, internal warner is there, who warns us from the sin, who warns us with the consequences of the sinning, who warns us from such actions that may lead us towards hell. So this internal warner, even though there have not been external warner, this internal warner is there with us. So this is how this problem, this objection is resolved by some scholars. They say that by Nazir over here, what could we mean? We could mean external warner, and we could mean internal warner too, and that is mind. So internal warner is every time there. So that's why this problem is resolved. This objection is resolved. But then there comes another question. All right. So our discussion is a little bit, I know, is getting lengthy and a bit more scholarly, but inshallah today we'll try to resolve it, and it will expand your mind as to how to critically analyze, try to critically analyze the verses of Quran. This will give you a manhaj, how to try to explore the verses of Quran so that you try to get to the truth. We can only try, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah will guide us. So then there comes a question, because in this verse clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about external guide, not the internal guide, because of the context. Look at the context. The context is word. Yaseen wal Quran al Hakim, innaka lamin al mursalin. Indeed, you are the messenger. You are from the messengers. Ala siratim mustaqim, litunzira qawman ma unzira aba'ahum. So that means in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing who? The internal guide or the external guide? Is addressing the external guide. Is not addressing the internal guide. So from the external guides, who is addressed over here? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is addressed here. So those of the scholars who are saying that internal or external guide both could be meant over here, that is not possible, because the context clearly tells us that this is about an external guide, not internal guide. External warner, not an internal warner. All right. So the external warner, we have a verse that clearly says that وَإِن مِّنْ أُمَّةٍ إِلَّا خَلَا فِيهَا نَظِيرٌ. There have been no nation, no people left without a warner. And this you can explain. This you can explain. That includes internal and external warner. Nazir could be internal and external warner. All right, this you can explain. But the Surah Yaseen verse number 6 is clearly about the external warner. So we cannot resolve that with this verse, because this verse of Surah Fatir, verse number 24, is could be for external and internal guide, and that one clearly is about external guide or external warner. So we said that one of the explanation is that they were not warned, but there comes another verse that creates ambiguity for us, and that is Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 19. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, قد جاءكم رسولنا يبين لكم على فترة من الرسل أن تقولوا ما جاءنا من بشير ولا نظير فقد جاءكم بشير ونذير. O people of the book, certainly our messengers have come to you, clarifying the divine teachings for you, after a gap, lest you should say there did not come good news and warner. So the warner and good news came after a gap. So clearly over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? يُبَيِّنُ لَكُمْ عَلَى فِطْرَةٍ مِّنَ الرُّسُلِ. So there is a gap now. Clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that there is a gap here. There has been a gap between the messengers. It's true, there has been a gap between the messengers. Over there, so if someone comes and say that there have been warners in every nation, every time in this world, and over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and you guys believe, you Shias believe, La takhlu al-ard an hujjatillah, this earth, this dunya, this world has never been without the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Over here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ala fitratin min al-rasul. There have been a gap, after a gap, a messenger have been sent. So how to resolve it? Very easy. Yes, there have been a gap of 500 years between the messengers. This verse talks about the messengers. Yes, there have been a gap between of 500 years between Prophet Isa and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After Prophet Isa, the next messenger who came and last messenger who came was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But our discussion is in Nazir, is in Hujjatullah, is not in Prophet, because Hujjatullah is a'am than a prophet. A messenger rather. We are talking about Rusul here, Ulul Azm Rusul here. So Hujjatullah, authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a warner from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, could be a prophet, Nabi, as in, could be a messenger, could be an Ulul Azm messenger, could be an Imam, could be a Wasi, could be any awliya, it could be any Hujjatullah. Yeah? So a lot of factors come when it comes to Nazir, when it comes to Hujjatullah. But this verse is talking about Rusul, and Rusul is specific, akhas, than our discussion, which is in Nazir, because the word over here, there in Surah Yaseen, verse 6, has been used tunzira. What is it? Ma unzira. Sorry. Ma unzira aba'ahum fahum ghafilun. Ma unzira. So this is the word that has been used. It's unzira. So now comes another question, and that is in Surah Qasas, verse number 46. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وما كنت بجانب الطور إذ نادينا ولكن رحمة من ربك لتنذر قوما ما آتاهم من نذير من قبلك لعلهم يتذكرون. So over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly saying there was no Nazir. Now, here, someone may come and say, okay, up until now, you've been saying over here, over there in Surah Yaseen, verse number 6, Surah Yaseen, verse number 6, you were saying that Nazir word is not used. That means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not talking about any warner sent there. They were not warned. They did not receive the warning. They did not welcome the warning of the warners. But in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clearly using the word Nazir, the warner. شوف ما آتاهم من نظير من قبلك لعلهم يتذكرون, that you may warn a people to whom there did not come any warner. So here comes the question, if there came no warner, clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Qasas verse 46 saying there came no warner, so how is our belief, Shia belief, explained as in لا تخلو الأرض من حجة الله, and Surah Al-Isra verse number 17 يوم ندعو كل أناس بإمامهم, يوم ندعو كل ناس بإمامهم. This is our belief, that on the day of judgment, the people, every nation, every group of people will be called by their imam. Yeah, this is our belief. So how to resolve it? So if there have been no warners sent, then how to call people by their imam, by their leader? If there were no guide or leader sent or warner sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to some people, because Allah is saying, مَا أَتَاهُم مِّن نَظِيرٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ, before you there came no warner. And then also this hadith, which is accepted by Sunni and Shia, all of the scholars, مَنْ مَاتَ وَلَمْ يَعْرَفْ إِمَامَ زَمَانِهِ مَاتَ مَوْتًا جَاهِلِيًّا. So this also creates problem, that because of this hadith, this tradition, which says that who died without having the ma'rifat, having cognizance of the imam of his time, he died he died in a way of ignorance. So this is a problem. And by jahiliyyah, not jahiliyyah, jahiliyyah, by he died in a way like before like in the time before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the time of jahiliyyah. He died that way. He died in a belief before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the problem now. How to resolve it? In Tafsir al-Amthal, which is by Sheikh Makarim Shirazi, he resolves this by saying that first of all, there was no warner sent in. By when we say there was no warner sent, it means there was no warner sent in Quraysh. Yes, for the forefathers of Quraysh, there was no warner sent. But before that, warners were sent. And by warners over here, we Allah means those messengers who had access all over the world, even, well, because there were warners there at the time before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hujjatullah was there, the authority of Allah was there. But by warner over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may mean any messenger who had access to who had access, or whose job was to spread the message of Allah all over the world. Because clearly Hujjatullah, the authority of Allah, which is our belief, La takhlu wal arz min Hujjatullah, we still stick to our belief, and they were there in the shape of Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam, and he was successor, and there were other successors of Hazrat Isa. So clearly clearly the successors were there, and those successors, those awsiya, were there to guide people. They were clearly hujjatullah, so they will be called by them. They will rise on the day of judgment with them. Yes, there was no messenger for 500 years, but they were hujjatullah, they were awsiya, they were successors of Prophet Isa, and the forefathers, from the forefathers, Hujjatullah, were there. But yes, there was no messenger there before that. Yes, when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent, he was sent after 500 years. No prophet, as in no messenger, was sent in these 500 years. But before that, awsiya, successors of Prophet, close ones of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were there who used to guide people. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So this is our discussion in this verse. Inshallah, we'll move towards next verse in the in tomorrow's session. So today our topic is about the streaming services. There are apps, certain apps, which when you subscribe to, they provide subscriptions to movies and series. Without taking names, obviously it's not appropriate to take the names, and there are more than one streaming services out there which provide services like you can watch movies there when you pay a certain amount, and you can watch movies, or you can watch documentaries, and there are other benefits of these streaming services, and there are negative points of these streaming services. But before we come to analyzing this question, it is very important to know that the situation of each area, each group of people, each society is different from the other society, and the situation from each person is different from the other person. This kind of hukum, this kind of fatwa, this kind of challenge differs from person to person, group to group, urf to urf. Why? Because in some urf, in some kind of society, something may be acceptable, and Islam also confirms it, that you can go with your urf, yeah, then that is fine. Just not that because the society confirms it, you start doing those things. No. Islam says, the Sharia says, the Shari tells you that it's okay for you to go with your urf, go with your society, go with your common belief in your society. Then you can go with it and see what is common there, what is accepted there, and what is not accepted. Secondly, the situation of each person is different than the other person, because all mu'mineen, all Muslims are not on the same level of iman. Everyone is on the same level of iman. Do you see everyone praying 5 times a day? Do you see every mu'min praying tahajjud? Do you see every mu'min reciting Quran? Do you see every mu'min refraining from unlawful act? Do you see every mu'min coming to lectures in majalis and taking out time for Islamic courses, or going for lectures in majalis? No. You see all kind of people around you. Don't go far away. Around you, in your family members, in your friends and circle, you see all kind of people. Yeah. So how do you know iman? How do you know the faith? You would say, I cannot see inside. Yes, you cannot see inside anyone's soul and see that what is his iman like, what is his faith, but it is reflected through his action. What is he doing reflects his actions, reflects his faith. His actions reflect what he believes in. So that's why there are differences, there are different categories when it comes to iman, when it comes to faith. A person who has strong faith, a person whose level of ma'rifah, whose level of cognizance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and on Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is very, very high. That person, and the person who is on a verge to sin, and his iman, his faith is very, very weak, that if you stretch it like a thin hair, if you stretch it a little bit, it's going to break. So that person, for him, the law would be different in this case than a person whose faith is strong when it comes to subscribing this kind of app. It's not the same for everyone. Everyone has to see what kind of person he is, what kind of actions he performs, what kind of actions he is involved in. So first of all, we will see that when it comes to watching movies and scenes with women without scarf, so there are very few countries or very few movies and series out there that may promote or that may produce movies and series with scarves, to be very honest. Most of the countries, most of the movies and series are there without the scarf. So when it comes to that, Ayatollah Sistani says, no issue watching them. There is no issue watching them if there is no lustful intention. So that is clear that if there are movies and series without scarf, but they are wearing nice fine clothes, there's not they're not revealing their bodies, and if it's a normal movie with a fine topic, with they're not promoting anything indecent, then that is fine. But when it comes to series and movies that promote and encourage forbidden relations, then is it permissible to watch or no? So there are movies and series that promote, that is made for this purpose, and they promote this, then it is said that watching these movies mentioned is forbidden if it influences the viewer and causes moral corruption or arousal. So see, here comes the question we were trying to address, that if it's forbidden, if it influences the viewer, if the viewer, the person who's watching it, is ready to take the influence, his level of ma'rifat, his level of faith is like this, that if he watches something, he's going to take the influence or he's going to get influence, then in this case, it's not allowed. Or even if it causes moral corruption, if there is no legal problem, but moral corruption is there, as in it may distort his thinking level, it may distort the way he thinks, the way he analyzes things, the way he behaves with his elders or with his family members, it may distort his moral behavior with others, then again, for him it would be not allowed, it would be forbidden. And then Ayatollah Sistani says that such movies to be avoided entirely as a mandatory precaution if it contains sexually indecent scenes. So even if these things are not there, on the basis of obligatory precaution, such movies have to be avoided. Now comes the question for the streaming company, streaming service. Is it allowed to subscribe to such streaming service or no? Ayatollah Sistani says if the service or company is not solely engaged in providing and promoting unlawful movies and series and programs. So if there is a streaming service which is solely known for, engaged in providing unlawful movies, series, and programs, and you subscribe to it, that is haram. So their objective is, we're not talking about 100%, maybe 70, 80%. It's known for something, for these kind of things, unlawful movies or series or programs, then you're not allowed to subscribe to it. Then it is forbidden to subscribe to it for viewing permissible content. Sorry, if it is not solely engaged in providing and promoting unlawful movie series, then it is not forbidden to subscribe to it. Then it's not haram to subscribe to it for viewing permissible content, not the unpermissible content. But then it says a person who is not immune from the temptation to commit an unlawful act. This is where it comes. There depends on what kind of level you are at. If you are someone who is immune from the temptation and you're not tempted to commit a sin, then you are a different person. But if a person is not immune and he is gonna be tempted for sinning, if he watches these movies or he subscribes to it, he's going to be tempted to watching unlawful movies and series from this app. Then for him, what is the law? A person who is not immune from the temptation to commit an unlawful act, for example, watching something impermissible due to the content, and so there is not he's not immune, so then it is not permitted to subscribe. So for such a person, it's not for him, it's not allowed to subscribe to such movies application or subscription. So it depends on what you do. First of all, what is your intention by subscribing? If your intention is to watch unlawful movies, or with movies with indecent scenes, then it's not allowed. And then, or secondly, no, your intention is not that, but you would be tempted to watch and you know that you're not immune to such things, then again, it's not allowed for you. But if your purpose and intention is not that, and you're immune to temptation, you're not tempted to sinning, you know what kind of person you are, how your past have been, then there is no problem. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.